Hello everyone, and welcome to my New York City subway one-to-one recreation in NIMBY Rails. I've been addicted to NIMBY Rails for a while now, and I wanted to take on a major project, and I thought this was a good one, so that's why I'm doing it. This is the start of a series where each episode I'll be building a different service in the New York City subway, with each station being decorated to match what it is in real life, as well as putting in all the switches and tracks and yards as they are in the real world. I'll also provide some information on history and layout of the lines I'm building, but don't expect anything too deep, as this just comes from my personal observations and reading the Wikipedia article on the line. Anyways, to get on with what I'm making here. What I just made was the Van Cortlandt Park Station, which is the northern terminus of the one train. Van Cortlandt is a really nice park. It has a long history of cross-country with some really nice courses. I know because I've run them multiple times. It's a really beautiful park overall. If you're in New York and want a break from the city, you can go to Van Cortlandt and walk in the forest for hours. It's really relaxing and an underrated park. Now, onto some information about the line. It's called the 7th Avenue line because it runs on 7th Avenue in Midtown, as you'll see. It was built in 2 stages by the Interborough Rapid Transit Company, or IRT. In case you don't know, the New York City subway was built by 3 different companies: the IRT, the BMT, and the IND. Nowadays, the former BMT and IND lines, trains, and equipment have merged into the B division, and the former IRT is referred to as the A division. This still affects the subway today because A division trains and tunnels are smaller than that of the B division, so A division trains cannot run on B division lines and vice versa. The A division lines are the numbered lines and the B division lines are the lettered lines. The 1, 2, and 3 trains run on the 7th Avenue line, with 1 being the local and the 2 and 3 being express trains. Local trains stop at all stations and express trains skip most stations. This can happen because below 96th Street there are 4 tracks on the line, so express trains use the middle 2 tracks and local trains use the outer 2 tracks, and there's no conflict between them. The line goes from Clark Street in Brooklyn and South Ferry in Manhattan to Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx. It starts elevated above Broadway in the Bronx and continues on until it crosses the Harlem River to enter Manhattan. Then it goes underground at Dyckman Street and goes pretty much fully straight until 96th Street. There are 2 to 3 tracks in the section from 96th Street to Van Cortlandt Park. The 2 and 3 trains branch off the line above 96th Street. From 96th Street down to Chambers Street, the line is quad-tracked with the 1, 2, and 3 trains running on it. After Chambers Street, the 2 and 3 splits off again and goes into the Clark Street Tunnel to Brooklyn. The 1 train stays in Manhattan, terminating at the island's southernmost point, South Ferry. Here I am building an exit to the 207th Street yard. I'm not going to build it this episode because it is mostly used by the A and C trains, and it's only used by the 1 trains to get cleaned, which is why there's a connection to the 1 train. This is because the other yards that the 1 train has do not have any cleaning stations, so they must use the 207th Street yard to do cleaning. Here I'm building the Dyckman Street station, which is where the 1 train goes underground, and it is also where the 1 train goes from 3 tracks to 2 tracks. Now let's talk a little bit about the history of the line. The first stage was opened between 1904 and 1908, which was from 42nd Street in Manhattan to Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx. The portion north of 42nd Street was part of the first subway in New York City, not the first rapid transit line, but the first subway. This means that it runs underground and not elevated, because there were already a lot of different elevated lines in New York City at the time. Now, the original plan for the IRT was for trains to run from Van Cortlandt Park down to 42nd Street. Then they would run on 42nd Street on what is now the 42nd Street shuttle and run it down the Lexington Avenue line all the way to downtown Manhattan. This worked out at first, however, eventually the line became too crowded and the IRT came up with another solution. They would turn the single line into 2 separate lines with the 42nd Street shuttle connecting them, making the system look like an H. In effect, this doubled the capacity of the IRT. The change came into effect in 1918 after 4 years of construction. The construction of the line led to the rebuilding of many parts of western Manhattan, as well as the extension of a few streets. The subway was constructed using the cut and cover method, meaning that all of 7th Avenue and whatever streets the subway ran on had to be excavated so that the subway could be built. The streets were temporarily made of wood while the subway was being constructed. Knowing this, it's not hard to see why it would not be a good idea to explode stations right underneath the wooden street with dynamite while it's open to the public. Well, that's exactly what they did in 1915 when they were excavating the 23rd Street station. It's not hard to imagine what happened next. The street collapsed into the station cavern, and 7 people were killed, with many more being injured. There was a packed trolley running on the street that fell into the station when the street collapsed. Here at 145th Street, the line goes back to 3 tracks. This is because this is where the 137th Street yard is located. It's an underground yard that's used to turn trains back during rush hour. It's also where City College is located, which is a public university with a very nice campus. This area is also near to Riverbank State Park, which is a park above a sewage treatment facility. It's got a track, a football field, both kinds, an indoor pool, basketball courts, and more. It's on the Hudson River, so it's got great views of New Jersey. Not that there's anything to see in New Jersey, because it kind of sucks, but you know. It also has a really good view of the George Washington Bridge, as well as parts of the skyline. It's a really nice place for all kinds of sports, or for just chilling, but it kind of stinks sometimes because of all the sewage. Another bonus is that whenever you cross the bridge to get there, you go over the Amtrak Empire connection, so if you're lucky you can catch one of the hourly trains. Seriously though, it's an insult how little service that line gets. And it's still unelectrified. Come on, Amtrak. Electrify it and run more trains. It's not that hard. At least get Metro North through there or something. I don't know. There's enough space for 4 tracks from what I can see. Well, that you need them anyways, because, again, you only run 1 train per hour. Now we get to 125th Street. The reason why it's elevated and not underground as all of the other stations is because of an interesting quirk of Manhattan geography. Basically, there used to be a little stream or something going down 125th Street, and there's a giant valley that goes down 40 meters and then goes back up. So instead of making the subway go all the way down and then all the way back up underground, we just decided to make it go flat and go above ground and then go below ground again at 116th Street. At 116th Street is a very obscure university that not many people know about, called Columbia University. It's an Ivy League school, one of the best in the country. It's also ridiculously expensive, but hey, it's America. What do you expect? Now you may be wondering, why does this line have 3 tracks? I mean, you only need 2 for the line to function. It's odd that there are 3 because you can't run a bidirectional express service, right? Well, you're right. It's kind of dumb to have 3 tracks. It's more expensive to build and to maintain without that much benefit. I guess one benefit is that you have the flexibility when you're doing maintenance, but there aren't even that many switches on the line, so it just kind of goes out of the window unless you're willing to skip 4 stations at a time. And there aren't even any platforms adjacent to the middle track, so you can't even run a single directional express service like on some other lines, since you need to share the platforms with the local trains anyways. And then it narrows down to 2 tracks above 145th Street anyway, so it doesn't even matter. And you have to build 2 separate side platforms with separate entrances instead of just one island platform, as you could with 2 tracks. Yeah, I have no idea why this line has 3 tracks. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you're gonna build 3 tracks, why not just build 4? At least then you can run a proper express service. New York subways are weird, man. Okay, so while I was ranting about the 3 tracks, you saw me build the 96th Street station, which is the last stop of the 2 and 3 trains on the 7th Avenue line before they diverge into the Lenox Avenue line. Oh, and here's what the station looks like. It's got a pretty nice headhouse. Alright, so let's talk a little bit more about the history of the line. To relieve overcrowding, the platforms on all the stations on this line were extended in 1948. This allowed the line to run 10-car trains instead of the previous 6. These platform extensions led to the 91st Street station to be closed as it was too close to the 96th and 86th Street stations. If you squint, you can still see the abandoned platform of the station. In 1989, a new service was introduced to the line called the 9 train. It was an attempt to increase service speed on the one by making it a skip-stop service. This meant that, for example, one train would stop at one station, then skip the next station, and stop at the station after that. 9 trains would stop at the stations that the one skipped. This didn't really work out too well, however, because this meant that the frequency was halved, meaning that even if you were going faster on the train, you would still have to wait on average twice the amount of time for the train to arrive. This essentially meant that there was no decrease in overall trip times, but there was more complexity and annoyance, for example if you wanted to go to a station that the train wasn't stopping at. This is why the 9 was discontinued in 2005. There are still some lines that keep skip-stop service, though. Jeez. This is Times Square, 42nd Street. Transfer is available to the 2, 3, 7, A, B, C, D, E, F, M, N, Q, R, and W trains. Transfer is available to the shuttle to Grand Central. Connection is available to the Port Authority bus terminal. For the two people living under a rock who don't know what Times Square is, it's this. Yeah, I knew you'd recognize it. Anyways, here I'm building Penn Station. What I'm building here is one of the many platforms at the station. It's the main train station in the city, and it used to be beautiful. Until they tore it down and built a basketball stadium on top of it, making it the certified most cramped station in America. Woo! They're making some good improvements to it now, though. It's looking a lot better. I'll probably have a whole episode dedicated to building it if I ever get to building the railroads. Also, platforms on the station are kind of arranged weird. Like, instead of having two island platforms, there's like one central island platform and two side platforms. I don't know. Apparently, it's to reduce overcrowding, but it doesn't make that much sense to me. So, in 1959, there was a short-lived experiment where there were one trains running a peak direction express service, originating at Van Cortlandt and making local stops until Dykeman Street, then running express to 137th Street, only stopping at 168th Street in between. There were additional local trains that originated at Dykeman Street. Because of the aforementioned limitations of the line, this didn't work as well as expected, and normal service resumed. But this express service didn't even use the third track, as it mainly ran on the double-track sections of the line. Here at Chambers Street, the 2 and 3 split off from the 1 and go into the Clark Street Tunnel into Brooklyn. Here is the World Trade Center Cortlandt Station. It used to be called Cortlandt Street before it was destroyed in 9/11. The station was rebuilt as part of a larger station complex/mall called the Oculus, a multi-billion-dollar structure that looks really cool. It reopened in 2018. Oh, and also fun fact, it's one of the few stations in New York City that has AC on the platforms. It's right next to the World Trade Center and the 9/11 memorials. Now we're at the southern terminus of the 1 line, South Ferry. There used to be a loop for trains to turn around in, but it was really old and it needed to have platform extenders because the curve was so sharp that the train couldn't even match up to the platform. It was replaced by a more regular 2-track terminus in 2009, and the station was brand new and super modern, but ironically 3 years later Hurricane Sandy hit and it was completely destroyed. The old loop was put back into service while the new station was being reconstructed, and finally in 2017 it opened again, but this time with more protection against floods and stuff. The loop also has a connection to the Lexington Avenue line, just before it enters the Gerlman Street Tunnel to go into Brooklyn. Here I am building the 240th Street Yard. It is the main storage facility for the 1 train. And now we're done. Here's an overview of the line. And now we're going on a ride of the line from South Ferry all the way to Van Cortlandt Park. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you when I'm building the 2 and 3 trains. Also, if you have any feedback, please leave it in the comments. It would be greatly appreciated. Goodbye and have a great day.